So I am here at the Necronomicon 2022. My name is Jason Ray Carney, and I am the editor of Whetstone, amateur magazine of sword and sorcery, and Witch House, amateur magazine of cosmic horror. And I guess I wanted to start a booktube channel. I'm not sure if it's going to be any good, but I have some downtime here at this convention, and I thought I would do an entry. So, the book I want to talk about is Blood on the Blade: 10 Tales of Slashing Swords and Sinister Sorcery. A lot of consonants there. Slashing Swords of Sinister Sorcery. This is a really good book. It has several great stories. I'm just going to talk about a few of them. There's one called God Killer by Cliff Biggers, which is really good. It's kind of a conventional barbarian stands off against a sorcerer story, but it's actually really fresh, and the sorcerer is uniquely described, and some things happen without spoiling it. It's just a really good kind of a standoff story. Think the very end of the 1983 Conan the Barbarian movie. So then we have More Blood by D.M. Ritzlin. That one is really memorable. It's kind of a surreal sword and sorcery in the Philip K. Dick mode. There's some disorientation. You're not really sure what's real, what's hallucination, multiple layers of reality. Things aren't as they seem, but it's still sword and sorcery through and through. I really like that story. Then we have the Hounds of Morholem by James A. Moore. That one's a good one. It has a really interesting baddie, a group of undead hounds, which is just cool. Then we have the this next story, The Sorceress Maze by Anne Marie Lutz. It's really interesting. It's not conventional sword and sorcery. It starts off almost like a cozy fantasy mode. This woman is making bread in her house, and there's a kettle on the fire, and it's a village, and so it's like automatically you're thinking this is more like cozy fantasy than sword and sorcery, but it very quickly becomes kind of Vancian, some sorcery in the background, sorcerers plotting against each other, weird stuff happening, really interesting and unexpected. The Bloody Crooked One by Charles R. Rutledge. That one was really good. It was a historical sword and sorcery. It had Romans and Druids and kind of diabolical ritual and some of the most excellent descriptions of violence in the anthology. It's exciting if you like action and swordplay and the carnage associated with sword and sorcery. Like that. I think that's part of the fun of it is the bloody battle. And then let's see what else I can talk about. Dishonor Among Thieves by Adrian Cole. That one is really interesting and kind of humorous in more of the L. Sprague de Camp style. I don't think he's going for a de Camp aesthetic. It's not historical. It's still very much fantasy, and there's all sorts of different dimensions, and there's the protagonist is actually an imp. It's not a barbarian. It's a familiar, a sorcerer's familiar who's lost his master. It's really interesting, really unexpected. And I guess my favorite would be Frank Schildener's Blood Games in the Temple of the Toad. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Schildener. This story is awesome. It's about in this edition. It's 38 pages. It's a little long. It reads like one of Robert E. Howard's longer works, like Red Nails or maybe People of the Black Circle. There are a lot of events. There's actually scene changes within the course of the story, and there's also a really interesting. I think it's supposed to be either Egyptian or Mesoamerican, or it's definitely not European medieval. There's some interesting, cultural elements to it. Yeah, it felt sometimes it felt like Egyptian, sometimes it felt like Aztec, but it's a fantasy world, so I'm pretty sure it was a fantasy world. It wasn't supposed to be historical. But the protagonist, I believe his name is it Obsidian Jaguar? Obsidian Jaguar, very cool. Think like the sword and sorcery version of Batman, but pretty cool, more violent. But yeah, so that's Blood on the Blade. I didn't mention all the stories, but they were all good. There wasn't a single story in here that I read and I regretted reading. So highly recommend it. And